So in this video, we're going to be talking about some very strange animatronics in the world. Now, if you don't know what an animatronic is, you guys know those old like Chuck E. Cheese moving things? Yeah, those are animatronics and I hate them. They're basically just these robot things that move around and scare people. Not really intentionally, but a lot of people around the world are afraid of them. So we're going to be talking about some of the creepiest ones. But before we do that, I just wanted to talk about the very first one that was ever made in history, and her name was Laughing Sal. And yes, laughing was spelled weirdly. Laughing Sal is a 6-foot-tall animatronic made out of paper mache with freckles, curly hair, and a gap tooth. And literally all she does is move back and forth while she laughs hysterically. It's pretty scary to see. She was created in the 1930s, and apparently only 250 were ever made. So if you look online to purchase one of these, they're selling for thousands and thousands of dollars because they are so rare. Laughing Sals were usually placed outside of a fun house to purposely freak people out a little bit. Apparently children would literally run away as soon as they saw her or heard her laughter. She was so weird, in fact, that people nicknamed her Psycho Sal. I don't blame them. So now you can usually find her in museums around the world, and some people have designed new and improved Laughing Sals to use at their carnivals. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, I refused to go into any type of fun house. I hated that sort of thing. I didn't like the creepy carnival music. I don't like being lost in mazes. I don't like fun houses. Comment down below if you felt the same way. All right, let's move on to a place called the Hanna Hotel. I hope I'm saying that right. There is this hotel in Japan that is staffed by robot dinosaurs. And yes, you heard that correctly, guys. I feel like this is both the coolest thing I've ever heard of and also the most terrifying thing. Some people have literally walked into this hotel and turned right back around after seeing the moving dinosaurs at the front desk. And to me, they're not even friendly looking. They chose the scariest looking dinosaur that looks like it's about to like bite my head off. Apparently their sensors detect motion when someone walks in and they yell out, "Welcome." And they also apparently make gestures and point to things with their little arms. I mean, did I just enter Jurassic Park? Each room is also staffed with mini robots, and even the fish swimming in the lobby run on batteries. So everything in this hotel are basically animatronics and robots. And honestly, I have to say, I'm really impressed by this. As scary as I would personally find this, you have to commend them for doing something so creative and interesting. I mean, I've never gone to a hotel where a dinosaur greets me. And that's the truth. In 2015, it was certified by Guinness World Records as the world's first hotel with robots on its staff. All right, the next place we're going to talk about is Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum. That was almost hard for me to say. It's basically this place in Michigan devoted to a huge collection of coin-operated animatronic dummies. They also have mechanical games and other oddities there. And honestly, Michigan isn't too far from my house. Like maybe one day I could actually go there. I mean, yes, it's like a 6-hour drive, but that's not too bad. But there's this one specific animatronic that's there that really freaks people out. And his name is Dr. Ralph Bingen Purge. I hope I'm saying that right. And even just looking at pictures of him, I could definitely see why he freaks people out. He's apparently a food county inspector, and when you put coins into him, he throws up. I mean, who creates something like this and thinks it's okay? This robot throws up. The next thing I kind of want to talk about is sort of funny, but I wanted to bring it up because a lot of people were afraid of these things, and those were the animals at the Rainforest Cafe. During my research, I literally found out that a lot of kids were freaked out by these moving animals in the cafe, and I have to admit, I kind of was too. And come on, I mean, that restaurant was really strange because you would be sitting there eating and suddenly the lights would dim and there would be a full-out thunderstorm in the restaurant. And if you happen to be sitting by the gorillas, be prepared to poop your pants because you had no idea when they would turn on and start beating their chest. I remember this one time the waiter sat us next to the gorillas, and my seat was literally next to this giant gorilla, and I was just sitting there eating my spaghetti, and for the past hour he wasn't moving. He didn't blink, he didn't move, he didn't do anything. So I was just sitting there eating unsuspecting, and suddenly without warning the gorilla was like and it literally freaked me out. I almost choked on my noodles. And ever since that day, that Rainforest Cafe, I just can't do it. Comment down below if you understand what I mean. Okay, this next place I know I'm gonna have trouble pronouncing, so I have to look at my phone, I'm sorry. It's called The Terrifying Creatures of Berlin's Das Monsterkabinett. Wait, that was easier than I thought. It's basically this rundown amusement park that they turned into a place where mechanical creatures sing and dance. They are mostly made out of found and recycled materials, which I guess is a really cool way to like use old recycled things. But there's this one specific monster that freaks everyone out. He has glowing eyes and really weird teeth. But people do say it's a pretty cool place to go as long as you're not afraid of animatronics. Alright, next we have Leota's tombstone. And this is a tombstone at Disney World on the Haunted Mansion ride. You'll see this tombstone while you're standing in line waiting to get on the Haunted Mansion ride. And some people don't expect her eyes to move, so it's actually made people jump quite a few times. And on her gravestone it says, "Dear sweet Leota, beloved by all, in regions beyond now, but having a ball." And when I was 10 years old, I went on this ride and I do not remember seeing this tombstone. I wish I did. But this is on the list of the creepiest animatronics, and even though it's only her eyes that move, I can see why it would be creepy. Because after looking upon her stone for too long, the face of Leota will open her eyes and gaze outwardly at the viewers, looking about before closing her eyes once again. So I think that's just such a cool touch to this ride. And lastly, we have the Ursula animatronic on the Little Mermaid ride. Ursula the Sea Witch is over 7 feet tall and 12 feet wide, and she is the most surreal figures Disney's ever engineered. The figure can bounce, sing, and emote just like an actual octopus. Well, as cool as her whole animatronic was, something very creepy happened in 2018. There's actually a specific date here. It was Sunday, January 28th, 2018. People were just going through this ride as normal when Ursula's head fell off. Her head fell off. And what's even creepier is that it didn't completely fall off on the ground. It was hanging from her neck by a wire, and she was still singing and talking and her body was still moving around. So all the kids that were on the ride started screaming. They were terrified. They had no idea what was going on. They had to shut down the ride, console the kids, and fix it the entire rest of the day so no one else could see that traumatizing event. Imagine going through the ride and seeing Ursula's head fall off. I can understand why that was not a good experience for them. In 1977, a man named Nolan Bushnell began working on an animatronic family restaurant which he later named Chuck E. Cheese. Okay, did anybody know that the E in Chuck E. Cheese stands for entertainment? Because I did not. And another mind-blowing fact about the name is that this creator chose Chuck E. Cheese because it forces people to smile when they say it. Because I guess when you pronounce the letter E, your mouth like opens like Chuck E. Cheese. He built the concept of his restaurant on the idea of a carnival. He wanted an atmosphere that would allow families to gather while introducing children to video games. The original costume for Chuck E. Cheese was an old-fashioned vest and bowler hat, and kids absolutely loved him. It's so crazy how back in that time, kids loved how these characters looked. And I mean, if we look at pictures of them now, it's kind of freaky. But back then it was totally normal. One of the things that set Chuck E. Cheese apart was the animatronic animals. Apparently the creator said he was inspired by Disney characters to create these animatronics, and I don't know about you guys, but I don't see any Disney in these. As the chain grew more successful and as the years passed, the novelty robots evolved and became more sophisticated. And one of the very first animatronics was named the King, and he was like a super popular animatronic. During the 90s, Chuck E. Cheese went through a makeover as well. The brand's mascot ditched his bowler hat and vest and chose a more casual t-shirt and baseball cap. I remember back in the 90s, they had these very weird Chuck E. Cheese commercials where it would be the cartoon mouse next to like kids, and they would just be having their birthday parties at Chuck E. Cheese. Do you guys remember those commercials if you grew up in that time? And yeah, it just became the go-to spot for parties. I remember my sister Mandy had so many birthdays there. Then in 2012, Chuck E. Cheese went from being a video game playing mouse to a rock star with a guitar. So over the years, they just kept rebranding him and changing his look. And in June 2020, news broke that Chuck E. Cheese may be filing for bankruptcy and may remain permanently closed. But those are just rumors. From some people I've heard that's not true at all, and from others I've heard it is true, so I'm not really sure. Don't take my word for it. So let's talk about the sad backstory of the actual Chuck E. Cheese mouse character. I know he's fictional, but this brand actually gave him a very sad backstory. According to the story, Chuck E. Cheese grew up in an orphanage called St. Marinera's. And because he was an orphan, apparently he didn't even know when his own birthday was, but he really loved celebrating the birthdays of the other orphans in this orphanage. He loved music and playing games, and it just says he loved to sing happy birthday, even though no one had ever sung it to him, which is like so sad. One day, when Chuck grew too old to stay in the orphanage, he moved to New York City, and there he was sad, lonely, and homeless. So he decided to sneak into a pizzeria to sleep there because he loved the music that was playing inside, he loved the smell of the food. But eventually, because he was sleeping there for nights and nights and nights, the pizzeria owner found him and tried to kill him because obviously no restaurant owner wants a mouse in their restaurant. So he was chasing Chuck around, trying to get him, and then suddenly Chuck started singing. And the pizzeria owner loved his voice so much that he employed him to sing to the customers in his restaurant. On his first night up on stage, Chuck was too afraid to sing and kept getting booed. And long story short, he noticed there was a kid in the audience who was wearing a birthday hat. So he started to sing happy birthday to this kid, and everyone loved his singing. Everyone was cheering and clapping for him, and the pizzeria became the most popular spot in town forevermore, perfect for families and birthday parties. So apparently that was like the beginning of Chuck E. Cheese. And this was actually made into an actual kid's book, which I find so interesting. And it's crazy how they gave this mouse such a sad backstory. Like, he was an orphan, he was homeless, he was almost killed by a pizza owner. Really creative stuff. Alright, the next rumor I want to talk about is the one about 5 kids who went missing at Chuck E. Cheese. This was a rumor that came out only about a month ago. There was this viral Twitter post going around the internet that showed 2 screenshots of news articles talking about 5 missing kids at Chuck E. Cheese. One said, 5 children have gone missing inside a Chuck E. Cheese. Parents report smells coming ... And another says, night shift workers at Chuck E. Cheese claim strange movement from animatronics during post hours. Ironically, at the same location where 5 children were reported missing. Now, these posts were going viral, people were freaking out, especially the Five Nights at Freddy's fan base, because it almost seemed like the game series was coming to life. I mean, the fact that the employees at the restaurant were seeing the animatronics move on their own when they weren't supposed to, and then they were noticing these foul smells around the restaurant, and then kids go missing. I mean, it does sound like something out of a horror movie or a game. Well, if you really go into research on this topic like I did, you'll find out it's not true. At least that's what I sort of found online. I mean, even look at how the news article spelled animatronics. I mean, like, come on. If it's a legit news company, they're definitely gonna do a spell check on that. Before I move on, I wanted to talk about what Five Nights at Freddy's is, in case you didn't know, which I know most of you do because all you guys request me to do videos on this. Five Nights at Freddy's is an American indie video game series that came out in 2014. In the first 3 games in the series, the player controls a nighttime security guard at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, who must utilize security cameras and other tools to survive against animatronic characters which become mobile and try and attack you after hours. They literally wander around at night. And this game takes place in a very similar looking restaurant to Chuck E. Cheese, which is why this missing kid story was so so crazy to this fan base, and I'm pretty sure this game was legitimately inspired by Chuck E. Cheese. Okay, let's briefly talk about the pizza slice conspiracy. I know this was like a very big topic like a year or two ago, but I couldn't make a Chuck E. Cheese video without at least acknowledging this. What's crazy is that apparently this pizza slice conspiracy has been going around the internet for the past 10 years, but because Shane Dawson brought this to light once again in early 2019, the internet started freaking out about it all over again. The rumor was that staff were recycling pizza slices that got left behind on the table after customers finished eating. So they would literally reheat those old leftover slices and use them to form new pizzas. And apparently that's why the pizzas look so uneven. They rarely look like a perfect circle like pizzas are supposed to look like. And I know after Shane's video came out, the restaurant made a statement saying all of this was untrue. Even some real staff members came forward and said, hey, I work here, they don't do this. So I will leave that up to you guys to decide. And lastly, I want to talk about this creepy story called Birthday Party for Dolls. A few years ago, the staff members at Chuck E. Cheese came forward saying that one day this couple arrived at their restaurant holding a bunch of dolls in their arms, claiming it was their birthday. And they literally wanted to be let into the restaurant with these dolls to celebrate their dolls' birthdays. So they literally set up a table, had all the dolls sitting around the table, and they had a legit birthday party as if they were real. They even had the server take these dolls' orders individually. Imagine how awkward that must have been for the server. Like, imagine the couple turns to them and is like,
"Excuse me, my doll Tina is waiting for her order to be taken."
And the waiter's like, "Oh, hi Tina, what would you like to eat today?" And the doll's like, would you like some pizza perhaps? How about a hot dog maybe? Yeah, your doll's not saying anything to me. Oh, actually, there was one more thing I wanted to talk about, and that is about a haunted Chuck E. Cheese. In the Bay Area, there's this particular Chuck E. Cheese location that used to be the home of a toy store called Magic Village that featured large toy soldiers in the windows. Those windows are where you'll now see the Chuck E. Cheese mouse when you drive by. So this Chuck E. Cheese apparently took over a very old and popular toy store. Now, as the story goes, when this location was still a toy store way back in the day, a little girl fell from a 3rd-story window. And though there's no legit confirmation that this ever happened, there have been claims from Chuck E. Cheese goers that a face of a little girl has been seen in the parking lot and on the 3rd floor. There was also a tale about a little boy who fell down a flight of stairs while it was still a toy store. And supposedly, cries for his mom can still be heard in the particular stairwell of the building. So there's just a lot of paranormal activity here, and so many staff members have come forward being terrified. Today I'm going to be talking about a very creepy animatronic called Uncle Klunk. But before I could talk about who he is, I have to go into the history of where he comes from. So he originated from a restaurant called ShowBiz Pizza Place. ShowBiz Pizza Place was a restaurant chain which was very popular in the 1980s, and its main competitor was Chuck E. Cheese's. And both of those companies found early success mostly due to the rise in popularity of arcade games at the time. And the basic concept was to offer pizza, a large selection of arcade games, and an animatronic stage show as a complete package of food and entertainment. And the largest difference between the two restaurants, and the easiest way to distinguish the two chains, was the different animatronics and mascots that they used. The mascot for ShowBiz Pizza Place was this character named Billy Bob, who was basically a hillbilly bear, and you all know that Chuck E. Cheese's was a mouse. And ShowBiz Pizza went out of business in 1992, and most of the locations were actually converted into Chuck E. Cheese's. So I guess in the end, technically Chuck E. Cheese actually won. But like I said, today I really wanted to talk about a creepy animatronic that was at ShowBiz Pizza Place that still haunts adults to this day. So as you ate your pizza at this restaurant, there would be an animatronic show on stage, and they named this band the Rock-afire Explosion. I have no idea why they chose that name, but honestly, honestly, it sounds kind of awful. And the band's characters were originally these various anthropomorphized animals, including a brown bear, a gray wolf, and a silverback gorilla. And they performed all kinds of things: classic rock, pop, country. They would even do these comedy skits sometimes. And this was actually quite successful for some reason. But one day they decided that they didn't just want to have animals in the band. They wanted to add a human-looking animatronic. And they named him Uncle Klunk. Uncle Klunk was a very strange character and was described by people as an abomination in the shows. He was designed to be one of the most sophisticated animatronics ever made at the time. He had nearly twice the amount of movements that the other animatronics had. He could actually pick up a telephone. He could grab a banana from a conveniently placed fruit basket. And less than 50 Uncle Klunks were ever produced, which meant that not every store received one. The idea was for Klunk to be a traveling character appearing for a few months in a particular location and later being removed and placed in another store. And like I said, he had such a mixed reaction from people. Some kids thought he was terrifying, others just thought he ruined the show they were so used to, and they described his voice as sounding like Walt Disney's Goofy character. And after some time of customers saying they didn't like him, they thought it would be a great idea to turn him into Santa Claus and thought that people wouldn't notice, because obviously they didn't want to waste the animatronics that they had just made. So they changed his clothes, they put a beard on him, and as you can see, he looks just as creepy. Now, after the restaurant went out of business, they just didn't know what to do with him, so they decided to create a project called Orwell, a robot you control, which basically took the retired Klunk animatronic, renamed them Orwell, and removed all of the skin and clothing to reveal the mechanics underneath. He was then placed in this game room where people could press different buttons on a panel, and it would trigger him to do different movements, kind of teaching kids how animatronics work. But honestly, he looks even more terrifying here. I feel like they took Uncle Klunk and every time they try and reinvent him, it's worse and worse. Another project involving Uncle Klunk was the creation of a new character named Uncle Pappy, and he looked exactly like Klunk, only he was wearing a pair of glasses, he had this ginormous beard, he had a blacked out tooth, he was wearing overalls, and he was also placed in this strange showroom, and he would just like sing songs to children. And once again, just like the whole Santa Claus thing, it was so obvious that this new character was still Uncle Klunk underneath. He was just in disguise once again. It's almost like you can never escape him, which is so creepy. And if you go online nowadays, people are auctioning off different body parts of his, and they're all rusted and broken and don't work anymore. For example, I saw this listing of someone trying to sell his arm for $1,700, and it was sold. Someone bought that. And then I found another one that was selling just his hand for $100, which honestly isn't that bad. Like, I probably would have bought it if it didn't sell. But I found this creepy story of someone that bought just his head at an estate sale, and he took it home and placed it on a shelf in his office, and then he kind of just forgot about it after some time. Well, one day he began hearing this strange clicking noise in his office, and he thought that maybe his computer was acting up, but he looked everywhere, he couldn't find the source. And this noise went on for weeks, and it was driving him crazy. And at some point, he finally decided to look up at his shelves over his computer, and he finally found what was causing this very annoying sound. It was Uncle Klunk's eyes repeatedly opening and closing, as if he had been watching him the entire time. That is terrifying to me. I don't know if that's sort of like a creepypasta about Uncle Klunk or if that actually happened, because maybe his head still had like batteries and it was still operating. I don't know, but that's terrifying. So this animatronic that I'm about to tell you about is actually from the Rainforest Cafe. Do you guys remember that talking tree? You remember that? So these restaurants were first opened in the mid-1990s, and it was meant to be a place that you could experience the magic of a rainforest while you ate. This loud storm would happen every 17 minutes, lights would flicker on and off like lightning, gorillas would beat their chests, elephants would stomp their feet. There was just always something happening whenever you ate in this restaurant. I feel like I had a very love-hate relationship with this place because while I did usually beg my parents to take me, once I was there, I was always terrified. Always. There are also 40 tropical birds, tons of tropical fish housed in 10 300-gallon fish tanks, and right now there's only 17 rainforest cafes around the world. And one of them is actually in Niagara Falls, which is not too far from me. It's like maybe an hour and a half drive from me. So if I go there sometime soon, I'm gonna have to vlog it and meet that tree, even though I really don't want to, and you're gonna find out why. I remember this tree used to creep me out so much as a kid, and most of the time it had its eyes closed, so it looked just like a statue. You didn't even realize it was an animatronic until you walked up to it and its eyes would just like pop open, and then it would just start talking to you ever so casually. I remember the way its eyes looked around the room as if it was like searching for me, and sometimes I would make eye contact with it and I would be like, no, there is no way it's looking at me right now. I would have nightmares about this stupid tree. Like, I would see her face whenever I closed my eyes. And I remember her name being Tracy, which I feel like is a very unimaginative name for an enchanted tree. No offense if your name is Tracy. I just don't know if it's that enchanted. Love the name, but for a magical tree? She would just tell you all kinds of rainforest facts as you stood there. And listen, I love education. I just don't love animatronics. And don't even get me started on those singing and talking Christmas tree toys. I had nightmares of those as a kid as well. I was just afraid of a lot of things. Still am today. So it's kind of funny that I do videos like this for a living now. I literally scare myself doing research all the time. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you this creepypasta about the talking tree from Rainforest. Prepare yourselves, buckle your seatbelts. And by the way, I know I still sound sick. I can feel it. Well, obviously I can feel it, but you could hear it probably in my voice, in my nose. I just sound really stuffed up. Okay, so I found this creepypasta talking about what happens with this tree after hours. Like I said, during the day, it opens and closes its eyes and tells you facts, but there was this one girl named Priya who experienced her do something very different after hours, after the rainforest was closed for the night. This story took place in the States, and there was a Rainforest Cafe in one of the malls by this girl's neighborhood. Her and her friends had been shopping all day and had hoped to go for dinner at the Rainforest Cafe afterwards, but unfortunately they were too late. It had closed by 9 p.m., which was a lot earlier than they thought it would be closed. All the employees had left, the lights were off, but they could see that animatronic tree in the very front with its eyes closed. They thought it would be funny to go up to it and take a selfie with it, but just as Priya held her phone up to do so, suddenly the tree's eyes just popped open. So she got really startled, she ran away, and then she watched as the tree's mouth opened and closed as if it was trying to talk, but the speakers weren't working. So one of her friends was actually brave enough to walk right up to the tree, put their ear beside the mouth to see if they could hear what it's trying to say, and Priya watched as her friend's face turned pale with dread at what she was hearing. When Priya asked her what the tree said to her, her friend wouldn't tell her. They said they just wanted to go home right away. The next day she found out that her friend had mysteriously passed away in her sleep. They had no health issues, there was no warning at all that this would happen, and Priya was so devastated and couldn't stop thinking about what the tree may have told her. So from that day forward, she was terrified of rainforest cafes and would do everything in her power to stay away from them. But 5 years later, when she had taken her nephew to the mall, he took her hand and pulled her over to the Rainforest Cafe so he could get a look at the tree. It was after hours again, and the tree's eyes were closed, but she felt this draw to go near it just to see if maybe it would whisper something in her ear just like it had to her friend. Part of her was terrified, but the other part of her was so curious to finally hear what it was saying. So the eyes opened, the mouth began to move, and Priya leaned her ear up to the mouth, and her blood went cold when she could hear it whispering,
"You're gonna die in 142 days.
And that's how this creepypasta ends. So yeah, this animatronic tree whispers to people the exact day that they're gonna die, which is terrifying. So obviously this tree told her friend that she was gonna die that night because she did. So that's horrible. Obviously this is just a creepypasta. I just have to say that disclaimer again. The Rainforest Cafe is not in any way affiliated with this story, but I just thought it was terrifying because I used to go to this restaurant all the time. And comment down below if you did. Have you been there before? I can't believe there's only 17 around the world. And lastly, since we've been talking about creepy trees, I want to talk about this legend from Japan. It's not about animatronic trees, but it's still pretty creepy. According to folklore, if you're ever in Japan, you may want to look twice before going anywhere near a tree because it might be a jaboko, which is basically a sort of vampire tree. This tree is apparently very very deceptive. And from a distance, it just looks like a regular, innocent tree. But if you look closely enough, you may notice that the branches look strangely capable of grasping things. And if you pay attention to the very base of the tree, you may notice that there are a lot of human remains piled up on the ground beneath it. So it is said that if you do encounter anything like that, you should run away as fast as you can before you become the vampire tree's next victim. It is said that Jaboko trees were once normal, law-abiding trees until one day the land they lived on was soaked in blood. And when the tree's roots were drenched in blood, they were able to transform into this otherworldly, malevolent spirit trees that get their only sustenance from blood, which is super creepy. So if you get too close to one of these trees, it will snatch you up with its long arms, forcefully jam its appendages into you, and then remove all that lovely red stuff from your body. So before I get into talking about the Susie Scribbles doll, I want to get into a little bit of history about moving dolls. Because what surprised me to know is that they started being created in the 1700s. And there was one very famous inventor, his name was Jacques Droz, I hope I'm saying that right. Pierre-Jacques Droz was born on July 28th, 1721 on a small farm in Switzerland, and he took a serious interest in clock making, and it wasn't too long before he became famous for it, and he was like attracting all of this really wealthy clientele. And what was so cool is that he didn't just make ordinary clocks, he created them with people and animals and birds inside of them, and when the clock moved, those things moved as well. They almost seemed to move by themselves as if propelled by magic, and people were so amazed by these mysterious machines that he was creating that he was often suspected of witchcraft. But it was only because people could not comprehend that machines could be created to do all of these crazy things. So eventually he had to like sit down and demonstrate to all of the people how these clocks worked, just so they wouldn't think he was like some crazy magician. And with his ongoing fame, he decided to go to the next level of creation. So between 1768 and 1774, him and his son created 3 automata, which were basically like mechanical dolls. And after their completion, they were shown at royal courts across Europe, and even until this day, people are still amazed by them. So I'm gonna talk about those 3 historical mechanical dolls, and then we'll get into Susie Scribbles because she's the more modern version of them. So first we have the doll called the Writer. This doll is controlled by a mechanism consisting of 6,000 metal parts. He is able to write any text up to 40 letters long, and the text is coded on a wheel where characters are selected one by one. He uses this goose feather to write, which he inks from time to time and even shakes off to prevent the ink from spilling all over his paper. His eyes even follow the text being written, and his head moves when he dips his pen in the inkwell, and he still works to this day, which blows my mind. It's just so crazy how back in the 1700s they gave him so many human-like actions, like shaking the feather pen to prevent ink blots. That's crazy. Then we have the next one called the Musician. This is a female organist who actually plays a genuine custom-built instrument by pressing the keys with her fingers. The music is not recorded or played by a mechanical music box, and this automation actually breathes. Like, you can see her chest moving up and down. She also follows the movement of her fingers with her eyes, and also imitates some of the movements of a real player, such as balancing her torso. So like I said, very human-like. It really freaked people out. And then the last one is called the Draughtsman. This is a young child who actually draws 4 different images: a portrait of Louis XV, a royal couple believed to be Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI, a dog, and a scene of Cupid driving a chariot pulled by a butterfly. This automation uses a system of cams which code the movements of the hand in 2 dimensions, plus 1 to lift the pencil. This guy also moves his chair and periodically blows on his pencil to remove the dust. Are you kidding me? So these were literally from the 1700s. This was the start of mechanical dolls and figures, and people thought it was pure magic. So now I wanted to talk about Susie Scribbles. She came out in the 1980s, and people were also so enamored by her, and everybody wanted her for Christmas. Okay, so this doll was created in 1987 by the Wonderama Toy Company of New Jersey. Susie Scribbles is designed to actually write with a pencil. When her power is turned on, her mechanical right arm moves back and forth, and while she is writing, Susie seems to speak as her tape plays. What's kind of strange is that her mouth and eyes were never designed to actually move, so she kind of just starts talking without any expression. The only thing moving is her arm, like I said. In her sitting position, she's about 15 inches tall and she weighs about 4 pounds, and every kid in the late 80s asked for her for Christmas. Now, she sold for about $70 at the time, and that included her desk, her paper, her pencil, and her introductory tape, but apparently you can go and buy like separate tapes. She had a bunch of them, and she's actually being sold on eBay now for hundreds of dollars. So I wanted to tell you a creepy story that I found called Drawing at Night. It's interesting because most stories I found from adults who had this doll as a kid, they had a really positive experience. They loved playing with this doll, but I was able to find one creepy story from someone. There's always someone. This story is from a girl who did not have the best experience. She said the year the doll came out, she would see these daily commercials for it and wanted one so badly, but years went by and her parents weren't able to afford one, and there was one Christmas in the early 90s where one of her friends actually gave her one of her old Susie Scribbles doll that kind of had slowed down, didn't work very well anymore, but instead of going and throwing it out, she wanted to give her friend a chance to enjoy it. Her friend told her that sometimes she turned on randomly, but other than that, she worked okay. Well, as you can probably guess, the time that this doll would randomly turn on was in the middle of the night. And what was so creepy is that it sat in the corner of her room in complete darkness, and she would wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of a pencil moving on paper. She would look over and see the dark silhouette of her doll's arm moving back and forth in rapid movements, and the doll would just be like giggling and saying things like,
"Do you like the face I'm drawing? After I'm done, you can come and color it in."
And because the doll didn't work as well as it used to, it would be drawing these terrifying faces. Like things that barely looked human. They looked like monsters or creatures. So of course the girl eventually got rid of this doll because she couldn't handle this late night drawing anymore, and I do not blame her. That sounds awful. And after I heard this story, as creeped out as I was, I really did want to buy one of these dolls online, and I'm still looking to find one. A lot of them are way too expensive, so if I do, I will definitely do an unboxing on the vlog channel and test her out. And I really hope she doesn't turn on randomly in the night.
This is a big box.
It is a big box.
But yes, we can see you.
Welcome back to Vee Vlogs. Today we are unboxing another creepy doll. If you watched our last video, you know that it is Susie Scribbles, which I did a video about. She's a doll from the 80s. She's a animatronic doll, is that how you'd say it? A doll that moves around and creeps people out.
I don't care what excuse you give. My idea of this is that there's like the soul of a Victorian child in this thing, and that's why it moves.
Okay,
they did that for all of them.
You're making it scarier.
They have like a soul funnel that they just jam them into these dolls, and they're trapped in there.
I don't want her to have a soul.
They're just drawing "help me." That's all they're saying.
Imagine if she does that. She draws "help me."
See, it's reasons like this is why Jessii says we're not allowed to get a parrot. Because I would teach it to say, "Help me, I used to be a man," or something like that.
That'd be so funny though.
Yeah. Talk about a witch's curse and all that stuff.
I would love that. Birds are so cute.
Until we have guests over, and then maybe someone thinks that the bird is serious.
They call the police.
On what?
On the bird. So here's the thing. I got this on eBay, and the guy says that she does turn on, but he doesn't know if she can write anymore. He says he didn't try it, which I feel like if you're posting something online, at least try it. Try it out, you know what I mean? But he didn't. So we're gonna be the experimenters, and we're gonna see if she still works, if she can still draw. Hopefully she has batteries in her. We don't even know what we're about to see here.
Seems like I'm probably gonna have to do a trip to the store today to see if we can get some batteries.
I hope we have everything prepared now, because that'd be so much easier. But he put her in just like a plastic bag. She's a little dirty.
That's a garbage bag.
You okay,
Is that
Susie?
an arm or a leg?
That is a leg. So she's an acrobat.
Her legs are backwards.
This looks illegal. Oh, girl. That must have hurt. Was she like that the whole way here? Oh, hi, Susie. It looks like you had a long trip.
See, that was me this morning.
So, usually she comes with a chair, a table, a pen, and like a notepad. We have none of those things.
Susie's fallen on some hard times.
Girl, we're gonna have to try and turn her on. We're gonna have to give her a pen. Hopefully we can find one that fits because she has like a little pen holder in her hand. And then we're gonna give her a piece of paper and see if she draws. The issue is, I feel like she almost needs to be held up on a surface. So we're gonna find those
See,
things.
I said that this was me in the morning. This is starting to look like me last night.
This was me at school, like in college when I had like a long night studying and then the next day I'm like trying to concentrate and I'm like...
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that.
Look how like creepy her arm looks like that. Okay, so we're gonna go and find the equipment that she needs. We're gonna try and find how she turns on and then we'll get back to you in a second. Wait, what's that? Why is there something attached to her chest? Ty, what is that? What is that?
It's the prince.
Why is Eric in her chest? Prince Eric?
Yeah, I think so.
Hi, it's Prince Eric himself. With his shaggy dog Max, Eric's is enjoying a shipboard party for his 18th birthday as Ariel watches and he begins to play a fife while the sailors dance and sing.
All right then.
Thanks, Eric. Oh, this card's from 1991. We're just collecting all the vintage here. Oh, this is her tape. I feel like this is creepier than it should be. Why do they do this? We just found a tape in her clothing. Okay, so we got Susie Scribbles tape. Caution, the tape can be unwound by children, causing a possible entanglement hazard. Gotta be careful with it. Okay, so this goes in her back. So we're gonna stop the camera and we're gonna see if we can access all the things we need and then we'll get back to you.
Susie needs a lot of power just to get running. These are like D batteries.
They didn't even give us the batteries, he said it worked.
They probably wanted to use those batteries themselves. D batteries are expensive. I don't blame them.
How much are they?
I don't know. Like you get a 2-pack for like $15 or something like that.
Oh, that's not bad.
It still is. That's still pretty bad.
I guess we're going shopping, guys.
Yeah. And hopefully the tape works. All right, moment of truth time.
It's been a hard day.
Yes, we had a lot of running around. I looked at this and thought, hey, these batteries, like at least these drawings of batteries in here, look a lot like the batteries that I used to put inside of like, I know this makes me feel old, but back when I was a kid, we had like these Hot Wheels tracks and they had like battery powered boosters basically, and they ran on these and they like absolutely destroyed D batteries. Unfortunately, well, we got them, yes. They don't fit. So I thought, you know, these are the biggest batteries they have. What the heck are we gonna do? But apparently C batteries, these little things right here, are a thing. And hopefully they work.
So we're gonna test it out, see if she turns on.
Yeah, we're gonna see.
We're really hoping it works.
It's a lot of batteries
I
though.
hope she doesn't just start talking, because I will lose it.
Well, I have to close it first.
I'm so scared.
I haven't seen an on switch.
Maybe
So
she just starts?
maybe.
Maybe once she has a pen in her hand? Oh. Maybe it's not it. Stop! Bean! Oh! You! Me? Did she just say you? Hi, Susie! I love how it's creepy music.
It's R.
R?
I think it's doing the alphabet.
Oh, she's drawing the alphabet.
Why does the music sound like it's getting like lower and lower pitched?
I don't know, we should stop it in case it doesn't work because we need to get a paper in front of her. Are you creeped out?
A little bit. I feel like we can up this challenge a little bit. Hear
Okay.
me out. I know it's very much out of character for me to be the one suggesting this. What if we try and turn this on at night?
Let's see if she writes something creepy.
Yeah.
You don't want to see what she does now and then later?
No.
You want to do it later?
I want to do it later. I feel like that's the best chance for it to do something. At least terrifying.
Okay, I'm down with that.
Now we've given a doll power so it can probably walk around and like attack us in our sleep, so I'm feeling great about this. That's 30 minutes of my life that I'm probably gonna regret now.
The hour is dark. Susie is gonna draw us a photo.
We're gonna see what, see, the issue is we're trying to find whatever marker we can that might be able to fit. We're worried that the mechanics in it aren't strong enough. So we're trying to mark her, and then we gotta like jam it in as best we can.
This is gonna be trial and error for sure. And we're gonna try not to damage the table.
Like the shoulder is like cracking as much as like mine do, so.
Okay,
anyways though.
Here we go, Susie. Draw us a creepy picture.
Let's see if this works. Or maybe I should like try and draw something. Let's see if I can do a smiley face first.
Ew.
Damn it.
I don't think that's gonna work.
No, it didn't work.
I think she's gonna have to show us her skills.
All right, show us your skills, Susie.
Come on, Susie. Ew. B. B or D?
V.
Oh, V. That's a V.
O.
Oh.
Oh.
Susie? That doesn't look like an O.
I.
I.
R. Au revoir. I promise if you want to get a giant
That's the R?
Mom or Dad.
I mean, I can kind of see
I
it.
can kind of see it too.
Grown-ups are funny that way.
What's she saying?
I have no idea.
Well, we're not going to say goodbye just yet, because I have something really special I want to draw for you.
Stop.
Well,
Wait, we need to turn her over. Lift her up for a second. She has something special to draw for us.
I'm only a little girl, and I write words and draw pictures just the way a little
She's
girl
trying to draw.
would. I am here to help you learn.
I think she's gonna draw a face.
New best friend. I want to draw one more picture for you.
Stop.
How I feel about you before we say goodbye. It's a picture of my heart, and I send all my love, along with hugs and kisses too.
Ew.
Happiest, I know that sounds weird,
Are you scared?
but I hope
It's like getting itself with the marker. Like hold it this way.
Susie, girl.
It's like stabbing the page.
What is she drawing?
Apparently what her heart looks like. They're realizing what they've done.
She's like, hold on a
now
second.
we've come to the end of our first date. I've had so much fun scribbling with you all about the things we can do together and how to take care of things.
That's what she drew?
And listen to
Yeah.
a lot.
I don't really know how to decipher this. Does it look like something? Not really.
I mean, at least they didn't like scribble something terrifying. They were kind of manhandling the pen like this. But that's
Yeah.
pretty much how I write anyways, so
This
I can't
was-
really bash them for that.
This was definitely the creepiest thing that we've gotten from
And
eBay.
of course you had me hold it too. That's
Yeah.
great.
Terrifying.
You're gonna wake up to see me sleepwalking with a marker and a pencil. Just
Stop.
on a paper. Just going for it.
Thanks,
Anyways.
Susie. Sleep well.
I don't think anyone is tonight.
Alright guys, so let's get right into today's video talking about the Amazing Amanda doll. Amazing Amanda was an interactive doll from 2005. She was the first talking doll to have an incredible amount of movement in her face. Her eyebrows move, she blinks, she smiles, she frowns, her cheeks move around, her chin moves, her mouth moves. I mean, it's crazy. Like, if you saw her from a distance, you would probably think she was a real child. She uses voice recognition, sensory technology, and articulated animatronics, and the results absolutely shocked people. She's a toddler who speaks, gets potty trained, plays games, cries, asks for food, and hugs. And she can even recognize her mommy's voice after only hearing it a few times. And like I said, her facial expressions just completely reflect her emotions. On her box, it actually says, "I'm smart, I listen, speak, and show real feelings." So let's talk about some of the creepy things that people realized that she did. This doll is very demanding. If she asks you for a hug and you don't give her one, she will call you out for it. She has this sensory thing built in her so that she can tell if you're hugging her or not, which is so crazy to me. So if she asks for a hug and you say no, she will literally get angry at you. The same thing goes for if you forget to tell tell her that you love her. Like if she's sitting there and she's like,
I love you, mommy.
and you don't respond, ooh, get ready for her wrath. Or if you feed her peas when she asks for a cookie, she will also get upset. You basically have to do exactly as she says, or else. There have also been parents that have complained about this doll because it doesn't shut off sometimes. It just keeps talking and making demands. So whenever parents try to tell this doll to be quiet, it will literally respond with,
You're not my mommy.
or she'll say like,
You don't sound like my real mommy.
because this doll only wants to talk to the kid who is its real mommy. And there's YouTube videos out there of people testing this theory out, and it actually works. If an adult takes this doll from a kid and starts talking to it, it will be like,
You're not my mommy.
people also claim that the doll's eyes follow them around the room no matter where they go. And I read a story about this girl that put her doll into storage in her attic, and in the middle of the night she heard its muffled voice say,
Why don't you love me anymore?
I think I regret buying this doll on eBay now, because yes, I did go online and find it. It's actually not too expensive. I feel like because people want to get rid of this doll, but it's supposed to be arriving in about a week or two. So when I get it, I'll unbox it and try it on the vlog channel. Apparently it still works. I just need to buy batteries, so I'm terrified. Okay, and then I found this really creepy story called Whispering in the Antique Shop. I found a story about a girl that recently got a job at an old antique shop in her town, and they mainly sold vintage furniture, decorative mirrors, antique silverware, and decor, but occasionally they would bring in old dolls to try to sell, and most of them were really creepy. They had missing eyes or chips in their faces or one arm, but that was usually why people wanted them, because they looked so worn out and clearly had a very long history. One day a box showed up in front of their store with a doll sitting inside, and it didn't look like an old doll, maybe something from the early 2000s. And this girl was so startled when this doll started to blink at her while just staring at her. She couldn't help but think that this doll looked so real. And upon further research with her manager, they found out it was an amazing Amanda doll from 2005. And because they really only wanted to sell older items, they put it in their back warehouse and decided to give it to a toy drive at some point. They were gonna donate it eventually. Well, weeks went by and they seemed to just forget about it. That was until one day this girl was working a closing shift and she hadn't had a customer come in for quite some time, and the store felt extremely quiet and empty. But then she started to hear this very small muffled voice coming from somewhere in the store, and this voice was saying things like,
Why don't you love me? I need a hug. I'm so hungry.
The girl was so startled that she literally dropped all of the expensive plates that she was holding. They shattered on the ground.
I can hear you.
The voice continued to say. She called her manager and they both searched the store for what seemed like hours, not able to find out where this voice was coming from. But then they followed the voice into the back warehouse where they realized it was coming from the amazing Amanda doll. When they walked in, the doll actually had its hands on the edge of the box and was almost peeking out over it. Its eyes were blinking rapidly. It had this huge frown on its face. It looked terrifying.
You're not my mommy.
It said in a much deeper voice this time. So they got rid of the doll immediately and vowed to never ever bring a talking doll back to the antique shop ever again. And that is how the story ends. I thought it was so creepy. As you guys know, I am so intrigued by older creepy dolls that were actually sold in stores. I do remember seeing commercials for this doll as a kid, but I never owned it myself. Thankfully. Thank you, Mom and Dad. But I had this nightmare that it's so funny because Mandy remembers it just as well as I remember it. Oh yeah. It was a nightmare that I had about this entity called the Flute Man. And I've definitely mentioned this on like my YouTube probably years ago. But it was this creepy thing. I woke up in the morning and I told Mandy right away. And like this dream was like vivid. And it was about this creepy man. It was like a tall, thin, older man who walked in our house playing the flute. And it reminded me of like the Pied Piper. You know how like he goes and he plays the flute and all these kids follow him. They're almost like hypnotized by his music. It's like an old fairy tale.
Yeah.
So this man walks in our house and like in the dream I'm having, like I picture the front of our house, I picture like the staircase, like our whole entire like outline of the house. He walks in, he's playing this beautiful like but haunting flute music. And I come out of my room and I look over the staircase at him and he's playing this flute, and like, I don't remember exactly what happens next, but I think we had our cousins over and they were all following him. And I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, where are you going? And I'm trying to hide in like a bathroom, and he ends up going down into the basement and our cousins are following him, and it was just a really eerie dream. And I remember scaring you, and you were like, stop talking about this because it was just so creepy.
And that was so long ago too.
Oh yeah, I was probably like 8 or 9. Like I was young.
And we like still remember that dream.
Yeah.